I'm just gonna have you first say your first and last name.
Okay, so my first name is Yani. Do I need to spell it? Okay, my last name is Zhao.
Okay, so first question, at what age did you come to the United States?
Since I was 22 years old.
What made you come to the United States? Like, what was kind of your pull?
Okay, so I came here because I want to continue my education as a master student. So I applied different universities. I only applied the universities in United States because I think United States has the highest level of education. So I went to University of Miami and started my graduate study there.
What is kind of, I guess, your reasoning for doing journalism and communication? Why do you want to study that?
So basically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chinese the educational system. So we need to take general exam, which decide our score. It sounds like SAT, but it's just you have one chance 1 year, and because my father, before he worked for the government, he was a journalist. So he believed that I should have some talent in journalism, but I'm not sure if it's true. And he selected that major for me. I selected law and economy before, but he changed my major and he asked me to go to another very famous university in China to start to learn journalism. But actually, I think I think journalism is a good major for me because I like to talk to people, but I'm not a person like who really focus on the news. And then when I applied the masters, because like compared to other majors like chemistry, something others, I don't think communication and journalism has very like professional skills that only can journalism student can work. So then I think journalism may be still the better option for me to continue my study, but because the university here, they have very high requirement for the language, and English is my second language, so I decided to continue my studies in the major of communication studies because maybe it's much easier for international students.
Right. Kind of going off of that, what languages do you speak fluently?
Definitely it's Chinese. It's my first language. So I have been here, if you can calculate, it's 9 years. But I have 2 years in China back because of the COVID-19, I cannot come back. But I still think that I don't have any talent on learning English. English is my worst subject when I was in the university and in my high school. I try to learn a lot, but sometimes because like English as a second language in China, and we learned when we were very young. But the thing is that I born in a very small city. If the people who live in a larger city, like something like New York, they can learn the very like native speakers language. But for us, even our teachers maybe do not even know how to speak English in like native speakers. So we learned very bad English at the beginning, and it's hard for me to change because I learned when I was very young. That makes me feel more difficult than others to learn English, and it's really hard for me to remember the word I just learned, especially if I use it frequently in my life. But academic communication is fun for me because I'm always like read such words and terms. But in the conversation, like in daily conversation, I need to learn more for English.
Since coming to the United States, how have you kind of gotten over that language barrier? Because like I know a lot of people will watch like American TV to kind of help with that. So what helps you?
I bought TV. My advisor say, "Hey Annie, look, there's a sale for TV. You should buy it." And I buy it. And very big TV, but I never watch it. I try to like listen to English every day, but the thing is that I'm not sure if everyone has the same issue like because I'm not good at language, sometimes I intentionally avoid to understand the language. And also because I have such difficulties in my past 10 years, or maybe more than past 10 years, sometimes I unintentionally avoid to really listen to the English until I'm listening to some video or videos in English channel, like on YouTube or on some news on the Apple. But I need to force myself to listen to it. But if you are multitasking, it is sometimes it's hard for you to really learn.
Yeah.
But if native speaker has many suggestions to me, I will be appreciated.
Okay, so in China, what was like your main way of consuming media?
How did I consume it?
Yeah, so like social media, TV, websites, newspapers.
Because I was journalism student, so we are forced to read newspapers, but most likely as not young anymore. Sorry, I prefer to consume news on social media, and that is also my research focus.
I guess this is a little later down, but now that you're in the States, do you kind of consume your media the same way? Through social media? Social
media is my first choice.
How do you stay up to date with like your home country, like what's going on there?
I use Chinese social media more than Americans. So like TikTok, I use TikTok like the Chinese version more often than the American ones. I also use Twitter and Instagram here, but most time I still use Chinese social media. So I should learn more news in China. And the funny thing is that for the same issue, you can see they have totally opposite attitude to report news.
Interesting.
During the COVID-19, I never heard any protest in Shanghai until my advisor told me, "Hey, do you know what happened in Shanghai?" I said, "No." And she showed me the news. I said, "Oh, okay." I never hear anything about it on the Chinese social media. So that's a total difference.
Were there any like specific channels in China that you would watch? Oh, well, I guess what specific newspaper did you read the most?
People's Daily.
Why is that?
It's the I think highest. I think it's the most famous, but it's a political newspaper. So you can read some policies there. But as I said, I am not a active seeker for the news. So when I use, they have many official accounts on different social media, and they always create some videos like on TikTok, has many like forwarded, many like and many comments, and the TikTok will recommend such video to me. That's the most frequent way that how I consume news on social media.
I definitely feel like I'm the same way too. I'm more of a visual kind of person when I read my news.
So you prefer the videos instead of the read articles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless I'm really into the story, then I'll read the article. But most of the time I like to watch it.
But are you are you actively thinking news, or you just read it like
just
accent?
Whatever comes my way. I'm not every day on the website, what's new today? You know?
Oh, you do not check, but they will give you some recommendation about what happened. But there's two different things. One way is that I want to consume some entertainment content.
Yeah.
But they recommend some like news to me. And there's another way that I do not have specifically look for any specific news. I just watch the news website randomly and they recommend news to me. They are both incidental news exposure, but I focus on the first one. So what's the type of you?
I don't know. I feel like it kind of depends. I'm definitely a soft news more of a person. I don't really do political.
I understand. I feel like younger people are more likely to focus on soft news. I don't have the data, but many papers said that.
Yeah. I feel like the shift was the 2016 election here in the United States, just because that put such a bad rep on American media.
what's the special things for 1626?
Fake news, basically like exaggerating everything between Trump and Clinton. So I feel like since then, political news have such bad reps of being like leaning one way, the other, not balanced, you know?
So it means that audience do not trust the journal, yeah. Yeah.
It's very hard.
Interesting.
What is currently going on in, I guess where you're from in China? Like, what is the top story, if you know?
I have no idea. I think maybe the relationship between China and Americans should be always discussed a lot on the social media.
Something we were talking about in class the other day was how they're getting rid of currency, right?
What is currency?
Like money, because America is so dominated on the dollar bills. I know it's Brazil, China, and Russia, and then some other countries. They're getting together to get rid of the currency and get rid of, like, I guess their ties with America.
I never heard of that.
I haven't either until we talked about it. I was like, okay. Okay.
Like, there are many news regarding the policy until the policy is really executed. I don't care about. There are so many possibilities.
Until it's actually a law.
Yes.
It doesn't matter to me.
And I heard there news that many states that prohibit Chinese to buy a house.
Really?
In Texas, first mentioned that one, but Florida they have passed. But I'm not familiar with the totally law, the process. But I know that Florida has passed that one, so which means Chinese cannot buy the living house there. But maybe there's some possibility that's just like against it again, but it's hard to say. Because I think it's not reasonable, like, why you only prohibit Chinese to buy a house there.
Yeah.
If you want to prohibit, you should prohibit all other countries too.
Right. Like, why is it just one country?
Yes, and I lived there for 6 years in Florida. If I can find a job there, I definitely would want to buy a house there. Sad.
How would you describe the press media in China? Like, are y'all pretty free over there, or is it, like, pretty restricted?
Press media? I think it is common there. You can see, like, when you read the news, you can see they have very strong preference to support a company or a character, Definitely there's some press media, but you cannot talk it, like, to public. But we definitely know there's press media.
What were some of your favorite things about the mass media you consumed in China as to, like, compared to America?
What's the advantage, or what's the favorite thing, I think?
I guess both. Like, what do you think they have a higher up on that America does not?
No. The only thing I prefer to consume the Chinese media news just because it is my first language. It's not because, like, actually, I prefer Americans news more because they have more freedom to speak something. And China has very, like, price restriction on what the press release can speak it out. Like, because I was working for the China Central Television, and when we reported some news and when we have some news event, we should be careful on how to select topics of news, because if you select some sensitive news topics, the plan will be undenied. So, but like, sometimes, although America's press release has freedom, I still think that sometimes they do not report the truth. You can see that they have totally opposite stance on the same event. If you want to say, okay, I have freedom, you should report the both side instead of just one side. But they both reported the opposite stance, which means that no objective.
Right.
It's still biases in American news too.
Very much. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people in the United States have about China?
It's hard to say. It depends on, because people around me, they are friendly to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. It depends on how American news frame
Portrays them.
the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, because I don't have a general perception about how Americans perceive the Chinese, so I'm not sure how to say what's the misconception there.
So it's all based on how Americans portray the Chinese in their media.
I'm not a news consumer for that things, but I think people should not. Sorry, so I work in that, but I don't think people really should trust the news. If you want to find the truth, you need to go and see it yourself instead of listen to the news.
Right. What was the shift like from consuming China's media to the United States? Like, what was that shift like for you, and kind of how did you adapt?
Shift. Actually, there's no shift. I still consume the news on social media. The only shift, I don't like consume news in China. And now I'm in America and I do not like to consume news too.
Do you do entertainment for both? Like entertainment news?
Let's see. No. I don't like entertainment news too. I am kind of weird. I do not like to watch any movie. What I like is just read fictions or read books. So I don't like to watch any television movie, and I do not like to actively consume some news. So that's my advisor said, you do not like media, why you choose media? I said, I like media. I just do not like what the content they deliver to me, so I decided to avoid the information.
Right.
And I don't think I have a big shift. The only big shift is the platform that I use to find the news there.
In America, we are very money driven with our stories, so we produce what's going to get the most clicks, the most eyeballs on it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say China kind of bases their stories? Like, is it they're following like the government, the elites, whatever they want, they put out, I guess.
On which platform?
I guess on all of them.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I understand the background information, but I do not.
I guess how are the stories formed, and like how do they pick the topics they're going to talk about in the media?
How the journalist picks the topics?
Mm-hmm.
It's regarding your gender thank you, right? So basically, I need to talk both, or like only need to talk China?
I mean, you can talk about both.
Okay, so I first talk about China. So in China, it depends on whether the government want to advocate such topics. And also it depends on whether it is closely relevant to people's life. As well as, so for example, like sometimes I feel it's really weird, like why such a topic is recommend is advocated a lot on some media platform. You can see maybe the government need to promote them instead of the media want to promote them. So what means, as I said, like Chinese press media totally is not totally, but definitely most likely is the government mouthpieces. And what the government want to do, like for example, if they want to have a new policy, they need to let the media to speak something that about the benefits of this policy. That's how journalists pick the topics. And also, like, remember, like, Chinese has 3 years for quality for during the COVID-19. I'm not sure if the word is correct. The quality, like they are locked in their home and cannot go outside because of the COVID-19. And although you can see that many people complain about it, but if you check on social media or check on the news, you can see there are many articles emphasize why they have such policy. It is really good for people, something like that. You can see some negative comments, but not very often published by the press release. That is the need for the government. It's not for publics. And Americans, how they pick news. Firstly, although, I mean, as a press release in Americans has some freedom, but I still think if the government needs to advocate something, they still have such trend to want to in line with what the government is currently doing. This is the first thing. Like, they want to prohibit some Chinese companies that developed in Americas. For example, TikTok. The press release, sometimes they also need to post some similar articles that in line with the same stance as the government. To be honest, I don't really think there's a freedom in news, both in American and China. You can just say comparatively, American news has kind of freedom that they all cultured by different. They press release still serve for society, for government, and I don't like the news.
I guess kind of how I asked about how the misconceptions of Americans to China. How is America, I guess, perceived in China?
Okay. Okay. So basically, in the present media, so American is, firstly, they are creative, definitely, because they have a high level of technology. And so many people, actually, they really think American has really good personality. For some, I'm not sure, like, firstly, personality is good, and they are smart, and they're creative, and they can do what they want to do. Sometimes in China it's very hard, because you will be required by the social norm and by families or friends to do what you need to do at this age. But from a general perception, like on a broad level, these things, I'm not sure how to describe it. I know the word. They are rude. Like they have many like I didn't know the words. They want to against in China. So I feel like based on what's description in the press media, Chinese feel like American want against in China and they want to beat Chinese government. So we should be more we should be together to give them some feedback. You can see that atmosphere in the press release, and because I'm here in America and I'm a kind of like influencer. I have 9,000 followers, but you can see sometimes say, America is good, right? I think, are you Chinese? Are you going back to China? Something like that. They have very like bad impression on people who are in American, and same as the Americans. But that does not matter how they think about individuals. They still think individuals are good. they have good personality, have high educational level, but I think that negative attitude is more likely toward to the government, American government.
Interesting. I think that is all that I have. Is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. No, I'm not news consumer.